Assalamu alaikum. As'ad مساءكم جميعا and welcome to our today's workshop. But let me first apologize for the delay. We are sorry for starting like a bit 10 minutes late. But inshallah, today's workshop is going to be about writing a systematic literature review presented by Dr. Mohammed Mansour. So Dr. Mohammed, the floor is yours. You may start now. Dr. Mohammed, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. Mohammed?
Okay. Right. So can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry for a bit delay. Right. So today we are going to talk about writing systematic literature review. Now, whenever we look at a topic like this, then the first idea comes in our mind that it could be a literature review that we generally do for our research paper or for our thesis, for our dissertation, or any kind of research project. But when we talk about systematic literature review, then it is a little different from the traditional literature review. This is what we will be exploring today. So I hope we'll be together and we will learn something from each other. So let's start. So here, these are the aims of this particular session. And what we'll be doing is outline. We'll see what the systematic literature review is, and this is the first thing we'll look into. And then we'll discuss the scope and the formulation of a review question. Now this is what makes something different about this systematic literature review. And we'll also look at the purpose and format of a protocol. We will discuss what is that. And then we will also look into systematic searching and screening of studies. So that's a very crucial point. So how do we search, and what do we do for that, if we could get some time for this. And then we will also look at data extraction, quality appraisal, and intro to evidence synthesis. Now these are basically important ingredients for a systematic literature review. So these are the points that we'll consider during this time. So, right. So what is a systematic review, and how is it different from traditional review? If you keep on posting in the chat box, it would be a great idea, because this is how I'll be in touch with what you are thinking, and so what I have got with me, so we can go together. So if you just write down a brief sentence like, how is it systematic review is different from traditional literature review? So what comes in your mind? Any ideas on this? Let me see, where is the chat box? Yeah, here it is. Now I've got that. Okay. Okay, so, right, this is cohesion. Okay, interesting. Uh, I need one more response, and then we will look at what do we mean by systematic and review. Anybody who could? Okay. Okay, interesting. So that is, all systematic review uses all studies in a specific topic. That's interesting, and we will look into this idea. Thank you. And now let's look at this systematic. What do we mean by systematic? Absolutely, we follow certain steps also. uh, when we say systematic, and we are not saying literature review only, we are saying systematic literature review. It means that there is something special with that word systematic. Here, if you see, done or acting according to a fixed plan or system, so methodical. I mean, we absolutely right, Mohammed Said, absolutely right. So that's right. It's systematic, follows specific research questions also. Thank you. Great. So many wise people are there. So when we talk about systematic, it means that we already have a fixed plan or a system we have established, and we are going to look into the studies according to that particular system. And obviously, as Mr. Mohammed Said said, that there is a specific research questions also that are already in my mind. But in traditionally, when we are reviewing literature, sometimes it happens that research questions are not very clear when we are reading literature. So sometimes research questions emerge from the literature that we are reading. So this is how it becomes a little different from. And then a review is obviously is very common. It is a critical appraisal of a work, a research article, or a journal. So this is the common thing between two research reviews. So, but this is systematic, makes a difference. We'll see some more specific details on this. If you look at here, a systematic review is a review in which there is a comprehensive search for relevant studies on a specific topic, and those identified are then appraised and synthesized. Appraised and synthesized mean they are read critically, and then they are analyzed as well according to a predetermined and explicit method. So method is already established, like what is the purpose of this systematic review and what we want to achieve out of this. So this is basically determined, and then we start by finding the studies and reviewing and analyzing and critically seeing what's there in those studies. Along with that, systematic review attempts to collate all empirical evidence that fits pre-specified eligibility criteria in order to answer a specific research question. Yes, obviously, this is what we were talking about. The research question determines the type of studies we will be, searching and reading and critically appraising. It uses explicit systematic methods that are selected with a view to minimizing bias. Of course, when we look into bias, it means that we are more concerned about the rigor of the research as well, because that is a very important thing. Because the outcome of this whole systematic review provides very important insights, and if the studies or the ideas that we are collecting during this process, it is based on certain academic biases, then of course the decision making that is wholly and solely depend on this systematic review can be faulty and can bring harm to what we are trying to make an effort for. So thus providing more reliable findings from which conclusions can be drawn and decisions made. So these are very important points in this particular systematic review, because these systematic reviews, they're mostly used for decision making at a particular level, because we will see that who are the people who mostly need these systematic reviews. So therefore, the standard or the criteria for selecting studies is very crucial in this kind of systematic review. Right. So now, why we need systematic reviews? Now, this is an important question that we will look into. So, when we see, we want to minimize the impact of bias and error. Of course, this is very important in decision making. We don't want to make faulty decisions, or the leadership or different people who are into policy making, or they are deciding on certain critical issues, they don't want to face any bias or errors. So this is very crucial criteria when we are looking into systematic reviews. It can help to end confusion, basically, because this is because such reviews are required when there is a problem arising or confusion is being created. So this confusion can be solved or ended with the help of these reviews. And here we can also see that it highlights where there is sufficient evidence, there is no sufficient evidence, that there we need to highlight the importance of that area as well. Combining findings from different studies can highlight new findings also. This is very interesting point here. When we are into research, so sometimes it happens that we are conducting research, reading literature, finding ideas, but there comes a stage when in a particular field of study, so a lot of research is done, then a few researchers or academicians, they decide to look into the already existing findings, and then they conduct a systematic review to see what research has achieved so far in this particular field, and where do we stand now in this particular point of time. So I think this is a very important aspect of systematic literature reviews. So this can be highlighted as well. Can mitigate the need for further trials. Yeah, of course, like when we talk about quantitative research. So sometimes it happens that when we are into certain studies, longitudinal studies, so there comes a stage where we reach a particular findings, but we need to further verify those findings. So there we can also continue with the systematic reviews, can help us to simply see how our findings are moving ahead, and what can we achieve out of these findings. Then why do we need it? It basically facilitate rational decision making, as we discussed earlier, because these reviews are very critical in decision making. They provide a lot of background information for people who are making decisions, that what could be the best decision at this point of time. Leaders, researchers, and policymakers are inundated with the unmanageable amount of information. Mostly the people, when they have a lot of information coming, so at that point we need precise information on literature that is already existing with the specific questions in mind, so that we can see what has already been done in this particular field at this particular point of time. Usually impossible to consider all relevant individual primary research studies in decision making context, so it becomes very crucial to conduct such systematic literature reviews. It also enables practitioners like the teachers. For example, we are practitioners to keep up to the date with evidence accumulating in the field and to keep up to date to the latest practices, because these literature reviews can also provide a lot of insights into what's happening in our field. For example, if we talk about TESOL or EFL, so these systematic literature reviews, they provide a lot of insights, like what is the current trends in research methodology, in classroom management, in professional development, or any other specific areas. So they are quite handy for practitioners also. So these are some of the ways. So, right. So here we will look into hierarchy of evidence at this point. Yeah. At this particular point, we will see that how do we test the evidence. For example, systematic reviews. This is randomized controlled trials, cohort study. Cohort studies are longitudinal studies where different cases are studied, or group of people they are studied during that particular, or case control studies or case studies. For example, we take ELI as a case, or King Abdulaziz University as a case, and then the research is conducted on that. If you see the case series, case reports, and editorials, expert opinion. So this basically the point where we start with, and then mostly expert opinions come. People, they start discussing particular issue. These things are highlighted in different research editorials or in other editorials, and then people, they start looking into the case studies on those specific cases. And then this is how we mostly reach to that systematic reviews, that these are the the pinnacle point of our research effort that is done in this field. So this is how we can see these particular kind of reviews can provide very practical and very effective information. Who undertakes systematic reviews? Of course, like regulatory bodies, they required, they need these particular reviews. Academics, researchers, clinicians. Of course, in medical science, they are very popular, such reviews, because the doctors, they are quite busy in their practices. So they need to know what has been achieved so far in a particular field. Practitioners like teachers in context, so it can be very handy. And then the PhD students, MSc students, they are also the people who can involve into these different reviews. So now here we will see the process, the whole process. How do we start and where do we go? So let's look at these broader process outline here. Define research review question. That is what we were talking earlier, that we need to define the research question. As yeah, in comments, Awad, she said that narrow research question, absolutely fine. This is very important, because this is what determines what type of path we will take and where we will reach then. So develop review protocol. Now this is what we will discuss later. What is a review protocol? Here we basically decide the time period of the studies, like we want to conduct a review from year 2000 to 2020, or this, it can be one of the criterion on the protocol. And then the type of studies included, what type of study, qualitative studies, quantitative, what would be our focus. and what type of methods we are interested in. Sometimes we specify studies with reference to methods also. And along with that, the analysis of the data, that also can be a determining factor in our particular protocol. So this is a very crucial point. And then we identify relevant studies. So we search. This is very common, where we go on different databases and search engines, and we define the key terms that we get from our research question, and then we start searching literature on that. And these comprehensive searches are determined by the protocol that we have decided here. And then we assess the eligibility, like select those studies which meet the predetermined criteria. Of course, like this protocol will help us to assess the eligibility, what studies can be considered and they can be included in that particular review. So data extraction and checking. Now here, this checking is very important, data extraction. For example, person A reads a particular study and then gets certain ideas out of it, but is it enough that can we rely on that particular extraction, the way data is extracted? Now this is basically where the bias and error can come. So for that, checking is very important. Checking is that somebody else should also read and see those findings, or those readings, are they really according to the criteria that is established, or they are not meeting that particular criteria. So checking is basically coming from another expert or another researcher who is involved in such kind of systematic review. So that's very important to meet the rigor of that particular research, and then the extraction of data. And along with that, study assessment, appraisal. So this is very important. Assess the quality and validity of included studies. That's very important. For example, the research journals that we are focusing on, that matters a lot, because it also determines the quality of research as well. Like, is it peer reviewed, or if it's not peer reviewed, and like where does that journal stand in the hierarchy? So that also matters a lot. So this we need to be very considerate about, because it will also affect the overall the quality of the systematic review. If we see the synthesis, synthesis can be narratively or statistically or summarized, described. I mean, this we have to decide earlier, that what would be the synthesis type we are interested in. So narrative is that according to the story, or according to a particular time order that we want to see the studies, or is it about thematic, like do we want to synthesize studies according to themes, or are we interested in finding similarities or differences between these different compare and contrast type of analysis? So synthesis is of course is a decision that we make when we are into determining our protocol. So knowledge translation, here review details and results are disseminated to relevant target audience and using appropriate formats. So then this is the last final production time, where we basically translate that particular knowledge that we have gained through this whole system. So I hope these steps are clear, and we can make some idea out of that, how this particular type of review is different from the traditional literature review. Right, so moving ahead, and let's define research review question. This is what we were talking about. When we look into the review questions, so we talk about the questions maybe broad or narrow initially, but as we have just seen that in this, that hierarchy picture, that it starts with a broader opinion. People are discussing certain issues, and then we can take those broader issues and then start narrowing them down as we start looking into the studies as well. But sometimes it's important to narrow them down initially, because then it would be easier to look into the studies, relevant studies. Well formulated questions will guide many aspects of review process, like searching strategy. They will help us. So if the question is narrowed down, so it can be quite handy, because then we can determine so many things initially. Inclusion, exclusion criteria, like what we will include, what we will exclude. If we are aware of the Boolean research in databases, then we can understand that in advanced research, we have the ability to include and exclude certain terms. So this can help us at that particular point. Data extraction, like after taking those studies, sorry, yeah. Data extraction, we read and get the ideas, and then choice of synthesis method, as we have just discussed, like will it be narrative, will it be summarize, will it be compare and contrast. So what method we are interested in. Presentation, dissemination of findings, of course that would be the final product that we will put into putting the ideas on the paper and then getting it published. So this is basically the idea behind that. So this is a quick activity, discuss very broad question and how you might narrow it. So if you could add something in chat box, of course it needs time, but let's see if we could come up with any broad question, and then we could make it a bit narrow it down if possible. So let's take 1 minute, because we also need to be careful about time. Yeah. Uh, okay. Usually meta-analysis issues with systematic meta-analysis. A meta-analysis. What do you mean by meta-analysis? Okay, that's interesting. Mr. Mohammed Said has put a question. Education in the time of COVID-19. Oh, absolutely. That's right. Motivation in learning. Okay, these are quite broad, and we can make them. Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so this is basically the basic step that we can take. The broader questions can be enlisted, then we can see how can they be put into specific ones. Green aspects, and okay, great, thank you, you guys are really awesome. Discuss the potential limitations of your review questions. Yeah, because sometimes it happens that limitations we should determine initially, so that we should know what can be possible in the time frame we have and what is not possible in that time frame. So this is very important. We need to look into that also. If meta-analysis, is it again, my question is uses statistic analysis. Okay, well, I have no idea about meta-analysis, frankly, because my major interest has been into qualitative research. So meta-analysis is about statistics. So yes, but this I can say, with surety, that it depends. Like you want to do qualitative studies or quantitative studies, you can determine that in the beginning in your criteria. And obviously, if your focus is on quantitative studies, then your meta-analysis can be a part of criteria of that particular systematic review as well. Yeah, that's a good idea that we can have another workshop on meta-analysis. Yeah. Right. So here we will look at if time. Okay. So this is basically, we are talking about if your broader question and your narrow question, and then you can see some limitations also. Uh, and we can conduct this activity if we would have more time, but anyways, so let's continue. Now there are some tips or guidance points. We can see a clear and concise statement of reviews objectives or questions is critical, as we have already highlighted this idea, and should begin with a precise statement of primary objective, including the interventions reviewed and the targeted problems. Ideally this would be presented in the single sentence, like the this review aims to, and after that we can write down one single sentence that what would be the aim of this particular review. Now we can also see that determining the scope is a decision dependent upon multiple factors. Scope of the review, like it will be dependent on perspectives regarding questions relevance and potential impact. Perspectives mean, for sometimes it happens that a particular research question can have different aspects. As we were just looking into your questions then when you were writing, for example, there was a question on I was reading education in the time of COVID-19. Now, if we look into this question, it's quite broad, but when we look into education, we can break in, specify education into, language education, and then we can specify into English language education, or if we want to specify to the context as well. So this will actually help us to find out the relevant potential impact of that particular question also, that what do we want to find out, like which thing is having impact on what. So this is mostly the way we construct such questions. Supporting theoretical, biological and epistemological information. This is important because are we interested in any theoretical framework by which we want to look into that particular review, or are there any epistemological information that is important as well, or biological information in case of medical science. In epistemological is related to the way we want to see reality or the perception of reality in our context, because these are determining factors that will establish. For example, if we look into education, so sociocultural theory by Vygotsky can be one of the theoretical and epistemological framework that can determine that we will see all the studies that are conducted by the help of Wittgenstein's, sociocultural theory. So this can be one of the, or we can say Lev and Wenger's community of practice, COP. It would be a particular theoretical framework. So what I'm saying is that these things are basically determine the scope of that particular question also. So if we see potential to what extent we can generalize, and the validity of that particular question is also important. And then obviously available resources, like to what extent we have the access to the resources. One, our resources can be the research journals and the books. What about the reports published by the various regulatory bodies? Like, do we have access to those reports? And that also will affect what we are going to do. Right. So question formulation, advantages and both broad and narrow questions. So we can see validity of very broad questions may be criticized for mixing apples and pears, but advantage might include comprehensive summary of the evidence. So there are, both the sides we have to see that questions, sometimes very specific questions, they become quite difficult to justify, because then as we have just seen, the availability of resources basically also become a huge issue at the end. And then to what extent we can generalize those findings, because that is also very crucial. Sometimes very specific research questions that we determine in the beginning, they also come up, or their outcome would be very specific findings. In that case, of course, like these findings may not be generalized, So they are having plus and minuses, but generally it is recommended that the findings could be generalized so that it could be applicable in other contexts also. Most obvious advantage of narrow focus would be sparse evidence may limit findings, as we have just discussed, and again the same issue that we highlighted. Right. Often dealing with complex interventions might be needed to develop working definitions of interventions of interest. Interventions mean we want to see the impact of something on another thing. So this intervention basically sometimes can be a broader variable in our question in when we are formulating. So that can also be a critical point that we have to determine. So here several options how to do this: pragmatic, real world, or theoretical, logical model. I have discussed earlier that already, that we have to determine these things prior hand during our protocol, so that we should be very clear that what would be the end result that we'll be getting. So let's look at the protocol development here. So when we are going to develop this protocol, so it means that we will set certain criteria on which we will be determining the other things. The protocol is essential component of systematic review process. It helps to ensure careful a priori planning. A priori planning means that we have already decided certain things and we will be working according to that. We are not focusing on what will be emerging out of the literature or the the information we have. Rather, we have already decided that what we are going to search for. So consistency, transparency, and integrity, they are very important values for this protocol, and we need to keep them in mind that everything should be consistent. For example, if we are going to review a certain number of studies, so the criteria that we will set, it should be consistent and it should be precise. Transparent, why? Because this check that we were checking, we were talking about the peer checking, the people, other people should also read, so that we could avoid error and we could avoid faulty findings, and that will establish integrity. Integral part of process for leading organization publication processes. So this is basically important, that because this is what they will also be looking when we will be putting our review for publication. So it will also be tested on the same protocol or similar protocol that they have established. So one of the we can distinguish systematic review from a narrative review is the criteria, like what can we include, exclude, methods, outcome to be synthesized. We have already talked about these ideas earlier during that process and in that the diagram that I was discussing. Searching literature. Now, when we search literature, so as I have already discussed, itself is a whole new topic. It definitely we can look into relevant databases, obviously, and then we can go and define our search. Boolean research option, advanced research in those particular databases, it can help us to determine all the key criteria that we have talked about in the protocol. We can set that criteria and we can look into those particular studies. They can definitely be relevant to the research question that we have established earlier. So this obviously we could have discussed this idea of searching literature by going online and searching on different databases. The famous databases related to different fields can be different. ABSCO is very popular in education and humanities. Similarly, in other fields, there can be other search engines that can be explored and we can get the studies. Now, after when we are studying, finding research and selection of the studies, So we can have certain other things that can help us to determine this. For example, during this process, it's important to use a reference manager software where we can use EndNote or RefMan, ProSite, Mendeley, or Zotero. That is one of my favorites. So that is because it's free. So you can use any one, and but it should be predetermined that you'll be putting all the citation of those particular studies in a specific place. Import results and screen. So because these database reference managers, they will help you to get all the metadata of these particular research studies, and you can put them in a particular place so that it could be in your range. So access full text for inclusion. So we need obviously we want to have the full text for our data extraction, so we can get the copies of those particular studies and keep in particular folders. So this organization itself is a very integral part of systematic review, because we have to be organized according to a particular criteria that what studies will go where. This needs to be determined in during the protocol. Data extraction, quality appraisal, this is what we were talking. Now we've got the studies with us. Now we will look at how to extract data out of those studies. So be clear that and what information you want from the studies. Like you have already decided, will you be focusing on findings or methods or data analysis strategies? So what is our focus? We will look those studies according to that particular focus, and then information will need to be collected related to methodology, population. Sometimes we might be interested in population, what type of case studies, cohort case studies, or what type of population is being used in that particular protocol. Interventions being compared, outcomes evaluated. Outcomes mean the findings. What type of findings are we getting from those studies also? So it's important when we are collecting data. So what effect measures you are going to calculate? What data do you need to do this? And then how are you planning to group studies for analysis by intervention, by study design? So these things basically makes it systematic, because these things, when we determine beforehand during the this protocol stage, so then we can start the whole thing. Otherwise there's a lot of time wasting going on when we are not clear about these particular criteria. Obviously, remember your protocol. This is the roadmap, and then we need to follow that. And then how much information do we need to extract from these studies? So it depends on level of judgment is required. Sufficient to describe studies. Generally, the rule of thumb is that by reading that particular study, we could comment on that study in one particular paragraph, like the way we write an abstract. Similarly, we could write a summary depending on our protocol that we have already determined. So we can say something about that study, that this study is about this is what they have done, and these are the findings. So in this way, it would be the minimum criteria that we can establish, sufficient to allow you to undertake the planned analysis, obviously, and sufficient so that you don't need to return to the full text papers again. So this is very important. When we are extracting information, we should make sure that these studies are read once and for all. So you don't need to come back, because the system by which you are extracting that information, the note-taking system, it should be very well established. And again, this note-taking systems, there are so many popular note-taking systems are now in the field. So this also be determined in the beginning, that what type of note-taking system will be chosen for that. For example, nowadays Nicholas Luhmann's Zettelkasten is a very popular notating system. It is called knowledge management system. So that is also popular in research literature reviews. So a lot of people, they are using it. It's amazing. So that can also be used in such endeavors. So however, you need to limit unnecessary details. So this is a critical point. So standardization and then consistency, we'll all have to be doing the same thing. For example, if we are three, four researchers are busy, or more than that maybe, so all should have the same focus. Essential, one reviewer is extracting data, and then in the same way other reviewers should also be interpreting the data as well, because this consistency determines what would be the integrity of that particular um, research. So these are important points. Regular discussion of progress, agreement, disagreement should be discussed. So these are important guidelines that we can see. So after once the data is extracted, you need to have a soft search your data. So this is what I was talking about, a particular note-taking system. For this now, a lot of application softwares are being used in research. Rome Research is popular. Obsidian is there. You can use Zettelkasten itself is a complete note-taking system. I mean, there can be some other also. So you can search that, and then all the extracted ideas should be the part of that system, and that could be searched and it could be filtered. And these such kind of system will help us to see those particular data or the information we have got from different perspectives. So this is basically the important point. So later on, when we are done with this extraction, we can categorize, code that data. Now it depends, like what do we want to achieve? So do we want to put the information narratively, we want to summarize, we want to compare and contrast? These things that we have discussed earlier will determine here as well that what would be the criteria. So database can be designed to have this functionality. So this is what I was talking about, that note-taking system or database that we have established, it should have some functionalities so that when we are writing, so we should be confident, and data should be easy to access in that particular point. Okay, so are you including more than one study design? So design is that what would be the way that we have just discussed. If we want to include more than one, then what would it be? It should also be established in the very beginning. And it says that you are still answering the same question. So make sure the core information extracted is the same. So this is very important, relevant. It should be related to the specific question. Again and again, we are saying the same thing, but this is crucial. So this is basically some other tips that we can consider while doing this. Now look at the quality assessment and critical appraisal. Quality assessment is of the studies, like are we only looking into qualitative studies, quantitative studies? And then of course, like both type of studies, they have their quality assessment. For example, rigor is there in qualitative studies, and quantitative studies generally deal with validity, reliability. So these things we need to be keep in mind when we are busy into that what is the level of rigor or validity and reliability criteria. Three broad categories, as we have just said: rigor, uh, obviously that how thorough and appropriate approach has been applied; credibility and relevance. So these are the common criteria that we generally see in research studies. So checklist for appraisal or for determining or assessing the quality of the studies that we are considering. Clear aim of research, so that is very important. Usually in the beginning, researchers, they disclose their aim. appropriate methodology, sample. This is the same as the research articles generally we see, sample strategy, data collection, relationship between research and a participant. This is very important. So many, research studies, they are, they don't have this particular important information, like, because this is it affects the findings of the study also, and it affects the rigor of the study as well. Like, what is the relationship between researcher and the participants? Sometimes it happens that the researcher and the participants, they are colleagues. So now in that case, the nature of research, it's not the same as if somebody who's an outsider who is coming and gaining access to the data. So this is very important that we should establish the ethical issues, data analysis, findings, all these are basically the checklist for that particular studies. Now, data synthesis. This is the time we have read and we have gathered all the information, building up, putting together, making whole out of the parts. Now, this is the time where we are linking ideas together, linking our thinking, they call. So we are going to see what idea connects with what, and then we try to complete this puzzle by linking ideas. And then out of those, we try to draw conclusions and principles. And we also look at the results from different studies need to be synthesized, and our studies and the results similar enough to be combined into single numerical result. Now, this is very important question. And no qualitative descriptive narrative summary can be feasible in that case. If yes, then quantitative meta-analysis, as you were saying, that meta-analysis is statistical analysis. I wasn't very much aware of this till now, but anyways, thank you. Heterogeneity is also important element, that is difference in results can arise due to the differences in study design, population selection, intervention delivery. And then it is also important that how similar is similar results from heterogeneous study. Heterogeneous means similar studies that are conducted for maybe the context might be different, but the focus might be similar. So this can also determine that what would be the way of data synthesis. Now, as we were just talking about, narrative synthesis can be then, instead of alongside meta-analysis, we can talk about potential of bias in the presentation, and lack of take-home message may be one of the criteria. Tools for narrative synthesis partly informed by methodological work. In the qualitative synthesis, tabulation can be there, grouping and clusters, vote counting and descriptive tools we can use, examination of moderator variable elements. So these are some of the ways that we can use to look into the narrative synthesis. Here we can look at the end of the presentation. Reference management is important. As we have discussed earlier, we can use certain softwares that are available, and they can help us to keep those references in a proper place. So this is again coming at the end. So thank you so much, and I hope it was of some help to get some idea out of this. Obviously, this is very broad, but it can be explored further in other sessions as well. So thank you.
Indeed, it was very helpful. At least for me, I really enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. And well detailed information about systematic review. So now let's open the floor for questions, comments from any. If you have any questions or comments, just open your mic or just write it here in the chat. And in the meanwhile, I'm gonna share with you 3 links: the evaluation form, YouTube channel, and our booking system. So please complete the evaluation form, and inshallah we will upload this wonderful workshop to our YouTube channel, inshallah, within 24 hours, inshallah.
Right. So somebody said that there is, yeah, okay. Uh, yeah, I want synthesis tool slide. Synthesis tool. Okay. Synthesis tool slide. Okay. Let me see. Uh, Extraction, searching. No, this is protocol. Synthesis tools. Data synthesis. Am I right? Is this the one? Or is this the one? Which one? I'm not sure which one was it. Anyways. Okay, so there is a question. Can you please tell us again about the note-taking systems you mentioned? Okay. Yes. Okay. Right. So basically, there is a very interesting book by uh, Saikon Ahrons. His book is title is How to Take Smart Notes. If you can get access through on Amazon, you can buy it. That is a brilliant book for the people who are into research, and they can get a lot of benefit of that. He has basically summarized the note-taking system devised by Nicholas Luhmann. He called it Zettelkasten, and this system, if you search on Google or on YouTube, you'll find a lot of stuff there. But the most popular note-taking apps are Roam Research, but it is paid. You need to pay money for that, so I'm not in favor of this at this point. Obsidian is a very popular note-taking app. You can explore this also. Or Notion is a very popular note-taking app that can also be seen. And these are popular ones. On YouTube, you'll find plenty of information on these, how to use these different notes. Okay, checklist. Checklist. Okay, now this question is coming again. I need to explore it further. Well, frankly, I haven't seen meta-analysis in detail, meta-analysis studies. So my apologies on that. But systematic review, I can give you some brief idea as I've just discussed, but I'm not sure about meta-analysis studies. As Dr. Basim has said that we can have another, this workshop on this. So in that workshop, we might explore further. But thank you so much for highlighting this idea, because this is important and crucial. I can see now. Thank you.
Yes, inshallah, we will plan on this to have a workshop, separate workshop, how to write meta-analysis research or research papers, inshallah, maybe in the summer or next year. And thank you for recommending this, Ikram and Suleiman. And inshallah, we will plan to have a workshop. So here, would you please write for us the name of the book you mentioned?
Yeah, okay. So should I write in the chat box?
Yes, please.
Okay, right. So let me see. The book is How to Take Smart Notes, and the writer name is Ahrens. I think Ahrens comes in his name, so it can be searched. It's published in 2017. I'm sure about that. So I hope you can. Absolutely, this somebody has already. Yes, yeah, that's the book, right?
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. So I think, okay, many thanks. Okay, dear Saki and dear Dr. Mansour. Okay, I think we reach to the end of today's workshop. Thank you, Dr. Mansour. Thank you all for attending the workshop. Inshallah, next Wednesday we'll have a workshop about how to write a book review. Stay tuned. Inshallah, we will meet you, inshallah, again on Wednesday. Thank you all. And
Thank you, Dr. Basim, for providing these opportunities. You are an awesome person. Thank you.